Hello and welcome to a very special How I Paint Things. Now it's been a while since the last time I painted the Cadian 8th, or the bog standard look for the Astra Militarum here, and I thought it would be fun to come back and try something a little different. You might notice that this video goes through a couple of different variations on a theme, because when I first started recording I was really thinking it was just going to be a speed painting exercise. But as I got going, it started to be a little more interesting than that, and I really had some fun. So what I've got this time is essentially how you can make the most of your hobby time by cutting a few corners and saving yourself a little bit of time. I'll get into that as the show goes on. Now I know some of you will ask why I haven't painted one of the new Guardsmen. The short answer is that out of the box of 3 sprues, 2 of them are still the originals, so this fella here is what you're going to get if you do purchase one of those new boxes of Cadians. It's much of a much, and this technique will work on pretty much anything you're going to be painting. So as always, paints will be listed in the description below. Let's get started. Now if you're looking for a way to paint these guys incredibly quickly, there are 1 or 2 stages beforehand that you're going to need to do a little bit of prep work with. Now if you haven't seen the video I did on this is Ali's Brown Liquid, and to explain it really quickly, this is 2 parts Agrax Earthshade, 2 parts Seraphim Sepia, 1 part medium, and then just a few drops of Drakenhof Nightshade in there to deepen the shading effect. Now, it's a lot of work to go if you're going to paint just one miniature, but I use this for all sorts of stuff, and if you are going to paint a whole army this way, then of course, having a bottle that you can match, it's a really good investment. The other one, you'll notice I have already primed this fella, and I've used the Army Painter Skeleton Bone for this. I do recommend pick yourself up some skeleton bone in a pot as well, just to be able to color match if you want to do any tidying up later. This color is extremely close to Ushabti bone from Citadel, so you can use that as well, but because the primer and the actual pot match, they say it's 100% match, it's close enough. It's going to be ideal for later on when we want to tidy up. So I've hit go on a little stopwatch off screen. Unfortunately, I don't have a chest clock or something that I can put in front of the camera here to make it official, but you can take my word for it. I've got here Cadian Flesh Tone, and we're going to start here because we want to be able to paint up. So I'm going to paint his skin very quickly. This will cover ordinarily in 1 coat, which is a bonus for us. I want to try and go away from the sleeve. So if I make a mistake, I splurge over something I need to paint later, it's going to be something like the green or what have you, rather than needing to touch up his sleeve. Same too with his face. We're not particularly concerned if we do hit the helmet or similar. Just 1 quick coat of this. Alright, so we're at 1 minute 30 seconds. Not bad. Now I've got here Vallejo's Flat Black, and we're using this instead of Abaddon Black because the coverage is much quicker. Wherever possible, I want to save time by making sure I can put this on in 1 coat. So let's quickly swing around, put that timer on. Now I'm applying this black before the green for the same reason as I did the skin first. I want to be able to tidy up with the green where I have to. You see, we'll flip him upside down there to reach the section of his belt. And same too with the straps on his face. Now our total time is 5 minutes 36 seconds. So that took me about 4 minutes. That took me longer than I expected. You'll see a couple of areas I have gone over and hit areas that are going to be green, well now, so we can tidy this up. What I've got is my Castellan green. And I haven't watered this down very much at all. Just a tiny wee drop of water in my brush as I was getting it out of the palette. And let's start applying this. So, start the timer. And same as with the skin earlier, as much as possible you want to try and paint away from areas that you've already done. So you'll see I'm being very quick, just applying to the las gun, dodging around his hands. Same too on his helmet here. If you use sort of the flat side of your brush, you can get up really close to the face without worrying too much about hitting it. So let's get some big sweeping motions across the helmet there. Oh, I don't want to have to do 2 coats. We'll see what we get. Now we're at 14 minutes 31 seconds. That green slowed me down a little more than I would have liked because I did need to come back and give it a second coat. So I paused the timer, let that dry, and then come and made sure I've got a nice solid color. It is important. So next up I've got lead belcher, and I'm going to do the metallic details. If you were going to use a stronger shade like Agrax Earthshade instead, then I'd suggest something like Iron Hand Steel, because you'll be working from a lighter color, the shade will bring it down and you won't have to highlight. Ali's Brown Liquid is a little more subtle by comparison, so I'm going to use a darker metal color, and I think that'll look fine. So let's get some paint on my brush, start the timer, and get down to it. So we're at 17 minutes, 53 seconds. I'm slowing down. What I've got now is a little bit of Corax white, and there aren't really many details left to touch up. So let's start the timer and just apply this to a couple of the white details. Now once that's done, at this stage is ordinarily where I would crack out the skeleton bone and do any sort of tidy up on his fatigues that I need to. But because I was being a little more careful when I was applying those other colors, I actually don't need to. So did I save myself time overall by being careful, or did I waste time by not just going as fast as I could and only touching up and fixing the mistakes I made? That's going to have me scratching my head, I'll say. But what I've got finally is the Ali's Brown Liquid mix over here. I'm going to get some of this on my brush, start the timer, and then same as always, we're going to start applying this liberally over the whole miniature. Make sure that you are working it into the recesses, particularly important on his uniform. Oh gosh, I can't keep this in shot while I'm doing this. But once you've given him a real good coat of this, we'll leave him for about 20 to 30 minutes to dry, and I am going to turn off the timer for that. But let's come back and get a look at what he looks like once this stage is dry. Now once our shade mix has dried, this is what we've got, and I'm actually really pleased with that. I thought that was going to come out a lot darker than it did, and in the end result, I'm quite happy with that. There's not a reason you couldn't just base them up now and put them on the table. But we're at the moment at 21 minutes and 25 seconds, so I'm curious, what more can I do if we aim for the half-hour mark? Instead of turning around now and saying, ooh, how fast can you do it? Well, let's just see what we can do with 30 minutes. So I've got here some Kislev flesh, and I've swapped it last to a small layer brush. Now let's start the timer, and it's probably going to have taken me longer to start the timer than it will to do the highlights here. I'm just going to do a couple of quick blips along the backs of his knuckles and fingers, and I'll do his nose as well. These Cadians don't have a huge amount of facial detail that sticks out from under the helmet, which is quite nice. Makes it really quick to do this. Now I've already just started the timer, so I want to be quick here. I've got Strachan Green. Now ordinarily the guides will suggest using Lauren Forest at this stage instead of Strachan Green, but because I'm doing one quick highlight, I want it to be quite prominent very quickly. So let's go around now. Let's see what I can do. Oh dear. Nope, that'll be fine. Quick as possible with some nice big highlights. Now I tell you, he's actually looking better than most of the guys in my army anyway, and I'm still at 24 minutes and 9 seconds, so I'm going to push my luck. I've got here some white scar, and I'm going to highlight the white, funnily enough. Let's start the timer, and this one is not likely to take very long at all, so just a couple of little edges of white. Oh dear, never mind. Right, so we're at 26 minutes exactly. Now I'm not going to run the timer for this stage because I want to use it as an opportunity just to point out how easy you can fix some of the mistakes you'll come across. So you see on the skull on his rifle here, I have blobbed it a little too much. I'm just going to get some neat Agrax Earthshade and just paint that into that line. I'll rub it away from the white that I want to stay white. Whoops. There we go, just dot that in there. And when that dries, you'll not be able to notice that little splodge. Now I've got 4 minutes remaining in my 30, so I'm thinking I'm going to push my luck and I am going to highlight some of his fatigues. For this I'm going to use Screaming Skull. This is just off-white, it's a really light beige. Oh, goodness me. And I've switched up to my medium layer brush. I tell you what, I've never stressed myself out so much as painting to a timer, so you might not want to do this specifically with a timer going all the time. It's interesting. Anyhow, let's get some paint on my brush, and then start that timer. And here we go. So I want to highlight as quickly as possible and really only accentuate areas where I think it's going to need it the most. So along his pockets, on his sleeve cuff here. I'm not worried if I do them a little bit thick because we are looking for something that's going to look good at table distance after all. So let's come back. I'm going to get this camera out of my way and see what I can do in this remaining minute or so. Right, now that is 28 minutes and 27 seconds. And I think I would be seriously pushing my luck to take it any further. As you can see, my highlights have been a little blocky, but they actually work pretty well. And when we hold him out, on table distance, he's going to look fine. I'm actually really happy with that result. I'm surprised I managed to get as much done as I did. So what I'm going to do now, I could have done this as part of the 30-minute challenge, but I'm going to go ahead, spray varnish him, and then hit him with a base. Let's get a look at what he looks like when he's all finished. And there we have it. Our Guardsman is complete. Now let's run some numbers, because I found this really interesting while I was waiting for the base to dry. If we round up, because he took me about 28, 29 minutes, let's round up and say 30. So a squad of 10 is going to take you 5 hours to paint like this. Now this is a conservative estimate. You'll find as you paint more, you will get much faster at doing that. But we'll say 5 hours for 10 Guardsmen. So if you can find 2.5 hours of hobby time every week, then in 3 months, you will have painted 65 Guardsmen that look like this. If you can find 5 hours every week, you'll have painted 130 Guardsmen that looks like this. But of course, we don't all, we're not all blessed with that amount of hobby time. But just something for a bit of perspective. Now this does rely on a lot of brush control, and that's something that will come with practice. Luckily, you're painting Imperial Guard, so you're going to have a lot of practice when it comes to what your brush is supposed to be doing. So let's mix things up, and I'm going to flip the exit script, let's say. So to my Patreon backers, in particular my producers Alan Nuttall, Kyrie Crawford, Trainboy, Fred, and Jimmy, thank you very much. Your support is invaluable. To Exit 23 Games for the light and sound equipment as well. Thank you very much to them. And remember that that is linked in the description too. There's some very cool miniatures to go and check out. Now as well, at the moment, you can go ahead and find me on Instagram. I finally started using that account again, and I think it would be neat. If you do paint up some Guardsmen like this, or anything else that you want to show me, you can tag it on Instagram with Sonic Sledgehammer, and I'll get to see it. Which would be really cool. I love seeing what people are doing. So any questions or anything, feel free, drop them in the old box below. My Twitter and Facebook are both linked there too. Oh yeah, and my Instagram. So, thank you very much for your time, and you all enjoy the rest of your day.